Chapter 71. I used to learn some archery when I was a child, but next time I'll try to target a big target like a princess. Then, Princess, your outfit looks good on you today. Some ladies even talked about the clothes. Thank you. I just pretended I didn't know. Poofed. Then there was an apparent sneer from here and there. Phew, things that don't make any sense. It was annoying, but it was bearable because it wasn't really about me. What else can we do now that this body has committed a crime in the past? If you go wild for no reason and get into the Duke's or Derek's ear, at that time it could be a matter that is directly related to life. Moreover, I felt a little sorry for the Duke, who was delivering the invitation to the tea party with more anticipation than concern about the party. That's why I was going to keep my seat so that I couldn't be more faulty. Even though I laughed, I was a little uncomfortable with my appearance without agitation, and the blue hair shook her mouth again. You seem to be going on a monster hunt again today, don't you? Huh? Come to think of it, the crossbow that killed the beast yesterday, right? Lady Aris pointed her finger at the crossbow on my back. Even she felt rude because she knew the purpose of the meeting. Yes, I answered without sincerity. It's been a long time since I stopped smiling. Oh, good for you. Listening to Aris, Countess Dorothea said, clapping her hands. Princess, I'm very sorry that she didn't see you yesterday. I didn't want to ask you, but since you're carrying it to the crossbow, please show off your bow, will you? You dressed to the occasion match. You're dressed to the occasion match. That sounds good. Callan took the speak. In fact, I recently received a big teddy bear for my birthday. I brought some to show you at the tea party today, and it would be perfect if you used it as a target. Oh, Lady Callan, what if there is a hole in your precious gift? It's much smaller than yesterday's evil, so maybe it won't happen. Oh, ho, ho. That's right. That's possible. The ladies again flicked their fans and burst into laughter. Get me what you've prepared. Yes, miss. Without even listening to my permission, Callan began to set the stage as she pleased. Oh my god, you've already got the target ready. I thought I'd see where she was going, so I leaned back against my back and watched quietly with my arms crossed. My eyes were pointed at their increasingly arrogant attitude. After a while, the maid who had left walked with a big teddy bear the size of her body and asked, standing a little away from the back of Callie, where should I put all the target, miss? Princess, which spot would you like? I think this distance would be enough. Calvin pointed to the maid, who was standing with a face desperately holding back the burst of laughter. It's just around the corner, so there's less risk of shooting people like last year. Isn't that right, everyone? The women nodded and sympathized with her question. Lady Callan is right. That's about right. It's a big deal if you get too far for nothing and the blind arrow bounces wrong. Wake up and show us your skills, princess. Wow, I'm so excited. Lady Iris clapped her hands like a child. I felt pathetic a little while ago when I mistook the girl's shiny eyes for curiosity. In a way, curiosity is curiosity. It was like watching a zoo chimpanzee or a clown performing tricks. It must have created an atmosphere that I couldn't resist because I first used her as a windbreaker. There was nothing more to look back on. Everyone will be looking at me with a derisive look similar to Aris. Therefore, I stared at the leader who would have encouraged the nobles to plan this position. She had a deep smile around her mouth. When she saw me, lost my expression. Let's see if you're going to running around like you did last year. The eyes mixed with contempt and joy seemed to tell me so. Penelope in the game had two options. They either go with clowns as they want, or they run wild to shoot everyone as crazy as she did last year. If it was a real Penelope, it's just an option to be annoyed. It was not difficult to show the crossbow skills as hoped. But then the princess' ridiculous crossbow show, held at a tea party, will be spread out by tomorrow. But if you're angry and upset, you dare to mock me. You're going to be the queen of the hunting festival with a vote of sympathy again, aren't you? Perhaps what Kellen wants is close to this. It would be better if you completely trampled on on a princess who you don't even want to see in society. Either way, there was nothing wrong with her. Then you can just choose both of them. Kellen tilted her head and called me when I didn't seem to move at all in my arm position. Princess, I was facing her and suddenly picked up a smile. Would a teddy bear be a little difficult? Yes, my answer embarrassed her. It seemed strange that the princess who immediately thought she would burst into a groan was quiet. Why? Unfortunately, that size is not enough to show you my skills. I glanced sideways at the teddy bear and recited it languidly. Oh my god. Countess Dorothea barged in. Then how big should it be to show your skills? Do you need a monster-sized target like you hit yesterday? The blue hair, backed by the support of others, mumbled excessively. But what do we do, princess? I don't think there's a master craftsman who makes such a big doll. Oh ho ho, I know, what a pity. The words burst into laughter here and there. Well, Druth, I got up from my seat, dragging my chair noisily, as if to ignore the Olons. I then turned the crossbow forward with a soft, elegant touch. I think it would be quite good if you match the fireflies flying around your snout. A bolt of steel, it was done naturally, like a stream, until at last a bow was aimed at one. What do you think? I looked around with my eyes down. The laughter of the women who had been giggling until the last time slowly died down. No one immediately noticed that I would aim to cross the crossbow at Lady Kaylin as soon as I woke up, because there was no notice. Kaylin and other aristocrats who belatedly recognized the situation opened their eyes. One of the elderly ladies who had been bothering her with the fan shouted loudly, Princess Eckhart, this. How can you aim a bow at the person again? I, Princess, I coldly cut off the woman's, and as if it wasn't worth seeing, I trampled tragically with only my eyes moved. When did Eckhart's name start to go up and down in the mouth of an old woman who doesn't know her place? That. The face of the lady warmed up to see if it was a shame to say that the family is so shy that she doesn't even know her place. But I couldn't resist myself more. It may have been respected for being old within the Tea Party, but because the Empire was strict with hierarchy. In the noisy forest where the Tea Party was held, an unbecoming silence fell. Princess, calm down. Lady Kellen spoke with a calmer face than expected. If you keep doing this, we'll have no choice but to call a guard like last time. Wouldn't that make it difficult for the princess to be in that position? It was a provocation, a mental worker who was trying to make me in tight position. Guards were stationed in the vacant lot just next to the forest where the tea party was held. It was obvious that last year's Penelope, who didn't know how to shoot, would have gone wild with a groan with a crossbow in her hand, enough for the guards who heard the commotion to jump right away. It wasn't hard to guess that the reason this girl was suddenly armed was for threats and self-defense. Learning the crossbow by nature, I realized that this body had no talent for martial arts. If I knew I would shoot an arrow at all, I would not have had such smooth fingers and no arm muscles. Foolish bitch. Why didn't I know that if I used my brain a little bit, I could easily break the spirit? The calm appearance, even though she talked about the guard, was filled with anxiety over that woman's face. This time it won't be as easy as last year, so I'm going to have to drop the crossbow. Then go get them. Once again, I peeked, twisting the corners of my mouth and tinkling. All the women's faces were shocked by my response. The princess, who would have gone wild even if she screamed and went wild, is told to call in the guard herself. Perhaps it was an amazing act. The blue hair looked at me again with unfamiliar eyes, but I tilted my head slightly with an innocent smile, as if I knew nothing. Would it be faster to bring in a guard, or would it be faster for me to shoot things that move? End of chapter 71. Chapter 72. Hoyok. I could hear a sharp gulp nearby. Maybe it's because of the different momentum from last year when she looked so stupid. I said go get them, huh? None of the maids, who had been flabbergasted as if they were going to call for a guard right away, either, could think of moving. The forest silenced with no breath. Only the sound of my fingers slowly groping the trigger went dreary. Princess, if you doing this. Lady Callan called me urgently. The Duke's crazy dog really tries to shoot people to death. Now I can feel some seriousness, and the blue-haired eyes, which had remained calm to the end, shook wildly, soaked in fear, and then snapped. No matter who heard it, the sound of pulling the trigger rang out. When the women, including Lady Callan, closed their eyes with a vain face. Bang! I mimicked the gunshot with my mouth. Naturally, there was no bead that was fired. It's a joke. I grinned and lowered the crossbow I was aiming at. Hiccup. Lady Aries, who was sitting opposite, burst into hiccups until just before, faces full of contempt and ridicule had already been eroded by intense fear. I must be a real villain. It was not pitiful, but rather a sight to behold. Why are you so scared? Speechless, I didn't even load, everyone. I held up the crossbow in one hand and pulled the trigger a couple more times. It was just to show that it was safe, and each time the thin shoulders trembled. I set the crossbow around my back again, and I looked around the table and acted as if nothing had happened. Relax your facial expressions, huh? As if a tomboy pouting her lips when the reaction seemed to be poor after a mischievous prank, she said with a frown. I feel like I'm the villain who came to ruin the tea party. I was invited formally to you. Speechless, aren't you, Countess Dorothea? As I looked back at the organizer and asked her, she jumped out of place. Well, yes, Princess. Quickly regained consciousness, she exclaimed hurriedly. Hey, everybody, smile. Princess played such a funny joke to make us laugh, but no one laughed at the prank. I have to go hunting now, so I'll get up first. I got out of the back of the chair. Since the atmosphere is frozen because of me, shouldn't the person who caused the inconvenience avoid the right place? I added with a look of regret. After getting ready to leave, unfortunately, I don't think I'll be able to show you my skills. My crossbow's bolt is not an arrow, but a magic bead. Speechless. I'll show you when I get a chance next time. I was about to turn around and walk. Oh my. I stopped walking again and turned my head to the table as if there was something I had forgotten and couldn't say before. I'm telling you in particular because I'm afraid some of you might be wondering what magic it is. Speechless. My crossbow bead has a magic of making the right things turn into an idiot. I calmly uttered falsehoods and started with the main culprit behind the plot and met each one. I calmly uttered falsehoods and started with the main culprit behind the plot and met each one's one by one. Thanks to someone, I couldn't hunt for a year, and I was itching to the point where they make these beads for me to catch the game. I went back to the beginning and fixed my eyes to the blue hair. I smiled with a smile and finally hit the wedge. Of course, it is made for small animals, so even if it's hit right, it won't die. Speechless, I wonder if magic will works for people. And Lady Callan turned around in the background, turning blue like a doze off. I was just on the way to the central vacant lot after finishing my threat to watch her mouth. My eyes suddenly brightened. System reputation has been reduced 10 to minus 10, total 80. I has lost my reputation. I poked my lips for a while, then passed the system window without minding it. It's not like being likable unless it's directly connected to my life. It was none of my business to fall for fame or reputation. Asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. Chapter 7. Hey, where should I go to the animal hunting zone? I grabbed a guard who was passing by and asked him the way. And after hearing the answer, I took a step forward, the main purpose I had thought of in the morning. After the entrance to the hunting ground, there was a way to go, and the right road was my destination. What can I get you? Recalling the inorganic gray eyes, I walked along the forest path with light steps. But on the other side of the road I've been to, it wasn't the animal hunting ground I imagined. What is this? I gazed at the endless stretch of trees and grass. What I thought was, of course, that the servants would gather only the small animals separately, fence them in a certain area, and lock them up, so that beginners can experience it easily. You said it's a place where kids can catch them, and it's just a forest. Yes, it was just a forest. I looked all over the place, but the animals didn't show up at all. It seemed to have been roughly arranged by releasing large and small animals separately from the crossroads. There are few parents who bring their children anyway, and most of the female aristocrats don't participate. Huh, why everything about this game so strange. I trudged along the forest path complaining. Fortunately, the road was well instructed and there was no reason to get lost. But even if I went deeper along the road, I wondered if I could catch or even find quick animals running freely. Let's just say we're going for a walk since we're here. I gave up my pledge to hunt neatly and walked down the street. But not long after walking, I realized that it was a hasty give up. Wow, it's a rabbit. A white rabbit as white as snow was hopping in a short distance. There were not only one, but as many as four. Cute. Actually, I have never seen an animal other than a dog or a cat in my life. It is because I have never been to a zoo where others have been bored. Because of this, even though I found out the hunting area, I couldn't catch them straightly. No, don't go. In the meantime, a group of rabbits who sensed the human metal ran away at a rapid. I got sullen and walked the road again. Soon after, the same thing just happened again. Squirrels, blue squirrels, raccoons, chickens, wildcats, and even small deer. I ran into a game of foot and mouth to see if I was in charge of the area where the animals were released. Sadly, it was just a meeting. The prey ran away quickly, either during sightings or around the crossbows. I was too novice level to hunting. It was fortunate that I was the only one around. It would have been a disaster if I had been formally involved in the hunt following the Duke with useless courage. With a sense of shame coming, I walked half-heartedly, with the attitude of being able to shoot the crossbow straight. I was entering deeper and deeper woods. I've found a hunt that I like more than anything I've ever met. Awesome. It was a gray-haired fox that looked just like a Cleese eye collar. That's it. I was sure at once. That's the prey I'm supposed to catch and take today. The gray fox was quenching his neck by a small stream below the slope. It was a rare kind of paper, but unlike other animals, there was only one. If I miss it, there will be no soup either. I shifted my foot carefully. I had to get a little closer because a tree on the slope was subtly covering the angle that I could aim at. I was careful not to make a sound, but soon I reached my target tree, half hidden on the wooden post. I slowly turned the crank. At that moment, the fox's ears pricked. However, it was still scratching water to see if it felt any signs. The cock. Finally, the load is complete. I slowly picked up the crossbow and aimed. By the time the target came into the center of the bow body, perfectly. The fox, who was drinking water at a leisurely pace, suddenly raised his head, and as soon as I pulled the trigger, it started running. Taang! The bead fired by a single stroke missed. The distance from the fox, who sensed the threat, began to widen in an instant. Don't! No, I can't miss it. Is this what a hunter feels like when he misses all his prey? I started running recklessly after the fox. I was so sorry and impatient that I couldn't catch it by a hair's breadth. I'll catch it soon. Unfortunately, it was my arrogance. The fox was incredibly fast. I can't believe how that little body comes with that speed and stamina. I wanted to run after it, but my weak body soon ran out. Oh my gosh. I ended up missing the fox. But that fox wasn't the problem. I ran to the depths of the forest because I ran frantically to chase the fox. Where the hell am I? When I looked around, I couldn't even find a well structured road. Let's find the mark first. Even if it's a forest, it's inside the palace anyway. I managed to raise the possibility that signs were installed throughout the hunting grounds to prevent any possible disaster. After a complete failure in hunting, I trudged my steps. Fortunately, I could quickly find a golden cloth tied to a tree. That's a relief. I was relieved. Now, if I walk along that, I'll be able to meet other people or get out of the woods. But my obsession was that I couldn't remember what the color of the mark meant. Q. Soon after, I was able to meet another prey. No, an animal that can be called a prey for hunter to hunt me because the host has changed. Q. Awk. What is it? I saw a huge bear popping out of the bushes. Without warning, I opened my mouth big. Only then did I remember. The golden mark means the area where predators such as lions and tigers are released. It was that moment. System, an unexpected quest has occurred. An excited giant brown bear has appeared. Would you like to hunt the giant bear and lay the groundwork for becoming queen? Time limit 30 seconds. Reward giant bear skin and gallbladder. Reputation plus 50. Favorability question plus 5%. Accept or reject. You crazy game. What's going on here? End of chapter 72. Chapter 73. I shuddered with amazement as I looked at the system window. I shuddered with amazement. Okay. Grr. The big beast, who looked twice as tall as I was, recognized by humans, and was wary of them, breathing out his nose. It was huge enough to believe that it was a monster, not an animal. What the hell? I managed to hold on to my confused mind and measure my distance from the beast. The bear was quite far from the crossbow to shoot. Of course, I knew how fast and dangerous wild bears were, regardless of distance. However, as if there was a game arrangement for the unexpected quest, the bear was bleeding with an arrow on its shoulder and leg. It was chased by other hunters, and it seemed to me that it was the weakest. Kuh! The bear barked furiously, enough not to catch the eyes of arrows and blood. I felt as if my eyes were about to burst on it. I saw a limp in its injured leg, but I didn't feel any relief. Damn it. I was frustrated. What kind of dating simulation game do that I have to do bear hunting? With tears in my eyes, I pressed accept because I had no choice. Hit red point with system weapon. Start. 30. Wow. As soon as a new article appeared in the square window, the bear began to rush toward me. Ark. I stared at the crossbow without even having to read it properly. Looking back, I flashed the red dot size of a soccer ball in three places. The head, body, and legs of a bear running on its 4 feet, and in the air I could see the number that just fell to fall to 29. It was a familiar scene. This is because even in normal mode, there was a mini game in this game, but it was like finding the wrong picture or putting the puzzle together at best. It's so sad to be possessed by a wicked woman. Why is the quest given hard mode so brutal? Fortunately, the bear ran slowly because of the leg injury. I revived what I had been practicing and aimed at the blinking red dot. It was fortunate that the target was large in size. Let's start with the body, that I thought would be the easiest to match. Chalkok Tang. Coo. The bear that was running stopped and convulsed with a groan. It was because the bead hit the mark and was shocked. I hit it. I took a breath and swept my heart away. Haha, I was so nervous before I knew it, and my back of my neck was sweating. It's all over now, right? I waited breathlessly for the bear to fall. However, the quest window did not appear, saying that I succeeded even though he hit it right. In addition, 21, I think big numbers are still counting in the air. Guru, I hurriedly lowered my gaze. The staggered bear tossed a little blankly at one-sided look. Then it raised its head suddenly. Guru. The eyes met. Far from falling down, the bear revealed it by looking at the prey it faced. One red dot on the huge body disappeared, and the remaining two kept blinking. Don't tell me. A stream of cold sweat ran through my forehead. I have to hit all three, right? At a time when I was embarrassed by an unexpected situation. Cool. The bear began to jump again. It was much faster than just before. I noticed the reason. The magic in the bead erased the moment's memory, forgetting the pain in the leg momentarily. Oh. In the fast-paced distance, I stepped back in horror. The lost hand pulled the trigger unknowingly. Tang, tang, bang. A few more shots were fired and hit the beast's body. Grr, grr. The same thing just happened again. After a brief twitch in shock, the bear found me and began running back. Thump, thump. A slight vibration was sounded by the heavy weight. What? Oh my god. Now the time limit is 14 seconds. I aimed the crossbow at the red spot, keeping a close eye on the bear, who stumbled but was about to rush again. I think it's a little dangerous. Fear crept up the breach. Perhaps because I wasn't in the right mind, the tip of the arrow kept shaking. I wasn't a skilled archer at all, therefore I had to not move on the spot to hit the target. I stopped backing up at the risk of getting closer to the bear. Chalcock, tongue. I barely get a red dot near its head. Cool. This time, the bear fell with a roaring sound, perhaps due to the heavy blow. Cool. Ha. I took a few quick steps back, breathing my patience. 9. Before I knew it, the countdown was less than 10 seconds. Now the red dot on the leg was the last. I propped up the crossbow again. In the meantime, the bear raised itself with a screech. It was a monstrous meal, having been beaten by beads several times already. 5. Now, 5 seconds. It was an urgent situation. I hurried to aim at the crossbow without letting go of my nervousness. I only have to get one last chance, but it was the last time. It was difficult. This is because even a giant bear had not been able to hold its body properly and continued to stumble. The blinking red dot moved around. Tang, tang, the launched bead brushed off its thick leg and hit the ground. 3. In the meantime, the time limit is just about to end. But what happens when the time's up? Suddenly, an eerie chill ran through my spine. If the game system only has to hit all the bear's weak spot to kill the bear, that damn bear could still be alive after the quest failed. Unlike the system window, this was a reality that I experienced and rolled myself. No matter how many times he was hit by the crossbow, the giant beast did not die. 1. And finally, the countdown has been completed. Tang! I couldn't concentrate because of that thought occupying my mind, and in the end, I missed the final blow. System, Great Bear Hunting Quest failed. Would you like to try again? Limited. Time, 10 seconds. Reward, giant bear skin. Gallbladder, fame plus 50, favorability of question mark plus 5%, accept or reject. The quest failed, and the time limit for the re-challenge was drastically reduced to 10 seconds. I quickly pressed accept without question about it. Cool. Because the bear was ready to rush to me with his mouth wide open, there was only one last point where the blinking red dot was not matched, whether it was following the previous attempt, but it wasn't fortunate at all. If I don't get that right, I'll die. A certain sense of death ate into the throat. I had not been able to widen the distance from the bear because I was concentrating on aiming at the crossbow. I pulled the trigger in a hurry to earn even a little time. Chalcock, chalcock. Huh? But nothing was fired. The bolt-mounted groove was empty. I used up all the beads. I opened my mouth blankly. I brought a cloth with extra beads in my pocket, but I couldn't take it out. Cool. Because the giant monster is a step ahead. The front foot of the bear, pipped with sharp claws, was lifted high, its size bigger than my face. I need to get out of here right now. I know from the head, but the body, even if it freezes, I didn't even dream about it. Whoa, whoa. As soon as the giant front foot caught the wind heavily and glided down at me at a tremendous speed. Hing, stay down. Somewhere there was a cry of words and the low voice of a man like salvation. The sound made my body move as if I was released myself from hypnosis. I leaned back reflexively, and the bear's front foot brushed past the top of the head with a slight difference. Hair was chilled by the beast's full swing that hit the air. Throng, poo poo. I hear a series of creepy noises that seem to be poking something. Cool, cool. When I came to my senses, everything was already over. A huge new Luke collapsed with a short death. Cool. A heavy tremor that seemed to shake the whole forest rang. It was because the heavy bear's body was scattered on the floor. Blood spreading like water on the ground soaked my shoes and nose. Only then did I slowly raise my head. In the middle of the neck of a giant monster bear, a large long sword was deeply in bloom. What the hell are you doing here? The golden hair glistened in the sunlight that leaked through the leaves. You said you were the Duke's crazy dog, but you're not an ordinary crazy. Were were you alone trying to catch this big bear? Doc, a man comes to me, jumping off a red horse like my eyes. He was the crown prince. End of chapter 72. Chapter 74, 2, 1. Beyond the tall man, the countdown was all over. System. Due to the timeout, Callisto appeared and killed the giant bear. System. Great bear hunting quest failed. It's ruined. Was the time limit for male leads to appear? I gazed down at the white square window that rose over the crown prince, panting shallowly. What are you looking at so stupidly? At last, the crown prince, who had reached a point ahead, opened his mouth when he saw me like that. Then he twisted the corner of his mouth and smiled. Why? Have you fallen in love again now? Only then did I wake up and frown. That can't be true. I even saved you, but I'm sad, princess. The crown prince recited with a look of no regret. Strangely enough, the sarcastic voice calmed the fast-paced heart. I thought I was really going to die from a bear's blow. The hollow grooves and the giant front paws of the bear that were approaching with a groan. Once again, I recalled the moment when my heart was pounding and my legs trembled and my eyes were dizzy. I breathed slowly, sweeping down my still fluttering chest. Come to think of it, it was more natural not to lead to death just by failing an unexpected quest. It was the same in normal mode as well as in hard mode. Watching the festival with Derek and Reynold quest didn't kill you. Hunting competition would be one of the main episodes of the game, so it was extremely natural to be tied to one of the male hosts in an emergency like failed bear hunting. But why this guy? I hid my crumpled face. Oops. I hid my crumpled face with my head bowed under the guise of greeting, and I forced myself to express my gratitude. Thank you for saving my life, Your Highness. Thank you. I was able to escape the crisis. I can't believe you're thinking of going around hunting the beast alone. It's so brave. Clap, clap, clap. Instead of responding to the thank you, the Crown Prince clapped unexpectedly. I wonder what the hell was going on in your head. Speechless, but no matter how crazy a princess is, she can't catch a bear that size alone. The way he sounded like admonishing an immature child suddenly made me feel bad. You think I wanted to? The quest has been ordered me to. The quest. I was so frustrated that I wanted to hit his chest and shout, but above his head, favorability 12% stopped me. I know. Instead, I replied in a sullen voice. The Crown Prince moved his shoulders up and down and acted in an exaggerated manner. You know? Yes, oh, that's what you knew. I shouldn't have stepped up to steal the prince's prey, isn't it? I didn't mean to hunt down. I tried to refute his tough tone of voice again, but I took it with patience. I was surprised to see a bear suddenly. Speechless, before I were lost chasing a fox, I muted with a gloomy face. The fox that was chasing finally missed it. Far from hunting, I almost died while catching a mad bear, so I even met number one on the watch out list of hunting competitions. So how can I not be so depressed? This is all because of that Eccles guy. What kind of trouble is this to get that damn favor? I lamented the fucking situation and swallowed my tears. I'm devastated by your rescue, Your Highness. Then I'll get going. I made a hurried bow, regardless of the fact that this favorability has gone away from death. There was nothing good to be involved with the Crown Prince anyway. The moment I hurriedly said hello and turned around, wait, the Crown Prince clasped me by the arm. Take that. What? It was time to look back at him with a puzzled look. The prince who laid down his arm suddenly strode to the dead bear's body. Then he grabbed the handle of the long sword, which had been lodged in the bear's thick neck, and pulled it down with all his might. Uduk, uduk. With a terrible sound of bone breaking, the bear's head was neatly separated from its body some time later. Crazy. I stared vaguely at the tremendous sight with my mouth open. The crown prince shook off a bloody knife once and put it into a sheath and walked toward me, holding the big head of the rolling bear in one hand. The blood that has not yet hardened fell off and drew a dotted line on the soil. Come on, take it. The crown prince suddenly handed me the head of the monster bear he had brought. I looked at what he had given me with shaking eyes. It was suddenly killed by the crown prince, and the head of the bear, who couldn't even close his eyes, seemed to be still alive and staring at me. Is this a double application that wasn't explained in the game? Otherwise, there is no reason to cut off the head of an animal that has been killed. I tried to revive my memory with a short few new effort, but I couldn't remember seeing such a scene in the game, no matter how hard I thought about it. I opened my mouth in a trembling voice, glancing sideways over the golden crown. I am glad to hear that, but I don't have a sword with me right now. It meant that I couldn't fight with you without a sword, but the crown prince spoke nonsense. That's why I cut it off for you. What? I can't take it away right now because it's heavy, so take it and show it to the servants. It was only then that I realized that the reason why he gave me the bear's head was not like a dual request. When I told him I was going, he made me run errands, and he seemed to be trying to keep up the hunt. Bad son of a bitch. How could you order a skinny lady to do this? I couldn't possibly carry the head of a big, bleeding bear. I didn't have to, should I? I asked him carefully, looking at his countenance. What nonsense is that? Then he frowned. Only when you take it can you prove that you caught the bear yourself. Yes, my eyes were wide open enough to. I have to take it with me to prove that I caught the bear myself. After a long time of rethinking what it meant, I realized he was trying to yield his prey to me. I'm It was such an unexpected remark that the leaking voice was trembling. I don't really have to. While I was busy listening to the chatter on my way, I had no intention of carrying that big head of bear and even making myself notorious as the Duke's crazy chimpanzee who struck the bear alone. In addition, and why is that mine? Your Highness, the Crown Prince has captured it. You've exhausted most of its energy, and have just stopped its breathing. So there is nothing more than that. More than that, this is what the princess has caught. How can this bastard say such a normal thing? I looked at the Crown Prince with nowhere look, more than ever before, and politely refused. That's okay. Thank you for your kindness, but I really don't need it. I don't think I caught it. Then just think as a reward for the gift I received earlier. Suddenly, I was wondering what you were talking about. I'll personally hunt down for a princess in return for your gift. I remembered what he said while rubbing my amulet. I forcibly empowered the reflexive frown. It's really all right. It is much more expensive than a fox. Don't be so stupid and stubborn. Just take it. It's not stupid stubbornness. Excuse me. Be careful. When I didn't answer, the crown prince looked irritated and fierce, and he came a step closer, holding its ears and waving as if he were trying to force it to pass. Blood that had not yet hardened splashed everywhere. I stepped back in a hurry, frowning my face. The blood splashing the clothes, Your Highness. If a hunter has blood on his clothes, he should be proud. I don't need that kind of pride. Are you afraid of blood? Unexpectedly, there was no time to answer that it was not like that. This is because he laughed and shook the head of the body he was holding on purpose. Ugh! I shrieked away from him. Despite quick escape, blood splattered on the skirt beside the jacket. A fishy smell came out. Since then, I had been extremely weak. It was not just a matter of blood, but the head of the animal he was holding was horrifying and scary. I looked up at him with a face full of astonishment. What are you doing, Your Highness? Come and take it. Stop it. Again, I was frightened and run away by his crazy behavior that shook the head. By the time I was hiding behind a tree, with a wide range of streets, haha, I heard a low laugh from the back. Looking back, there was a smile hanging around the crown prince's mouth, and that moment his head glistened. Favorability 15%. End of chapter 74. Chapter 75. The 3% increasing favorability was incredible, so I stared blankly at him and his head alternately. Red eyes bent as I stared at him, with the bear's head wide open. Callisto's face was like a demon fresh from hell. Well, is that funny? Yes, I saw Eckhart's crazy dog running away in a fright. That's pretty funny. Do you really have to play with the dead animal carcass? I don't think that's what the man who shot the crossbow to death would say. You're doomed. It was when I was staring at him with a trembling fist clenched. Suddenly, a cold drop of water fell on my forehead. Kurururu. The surroundings suddenly became dark. The sky had changed unusually between the prince and the Jade Emperor. Dark clouds swarmed in an instant to cover the sun. It's a shower, the crown prince muttered. It wasn't long before the ominous words came true. Tutuk, tutuk. The number of water drops that had fallen by drop began to increase exponentially. Your Grace, thank you again for saving me. Goodbye. I hurried to greet the crown prince. I had to hurry out of the woods before it rained. I didn't want to stay in this fucking hunting ground for another hour. The leg was moving in a hurry, over and over. He still grabbed the bear's head and followed me closely like that way. Where are you going? Out of the hunting ground. It's going to rain soon. So I have to get out of before it's raining. I answered unkindly. He tilted his head sideways and twisted the corners of his mouth. The princess must have already forgotten that this is in the middle of a deep forest full of predators. Speechless, I ignored him and just tried to go my way. If a game maker had a conscience, he would have placed this crazy quest only once. It was because of such an idea, but at that moment something flashed up. Compensation. Giant bear skin and gallbladder reputation plus 50. Favorability plus 5 plus 5%. And the favorability of question mark. I stopped walking. Come to think of it, I met the crown prince, but his name was not written on the reward, so I never expected him to save me. Then there might be another quest like this until we get out of the woods. This means that unless there is a specific target for compensation, there is a possibility of meeting with another male besides the crown prince. Crazy. The idea of meeting them one by one was more terrible than the sudden quest to catch the beast. I literally stopped at the top in my towering seat. I then hurriedly took a cloth containing extra beads out of my pocket, turned the crossbow around and put the beads into the groove. Drut, click, clicking, clicking. What are you doing? The Crown Prince came close to me and asked me, turn off your nerves and go your way. I opened my mouth, pressing down on the words that were about to pop out. As your highness can see, I'm installing bolts. Why? You never know. Like you said, there might be another beast on the way. Heo? The crown prince burst into a laugh, as if he were dumbfounded. You can't deal with big animals with such crude weapons, princess. Haven't you just experienced it? Thank you for your concern, but I'll take care of it, your highness. I had no intention of going with him, so I answered with a dull reply. Just follow the quest anyway. Moreover, even the wild beasts of the forest would avoid the rain, so this was only to be prepared. You seem to be so proud that you were lucky to catch some evil yesterday. However, the crown prince, who was unaware of the situation, seemed to be quite reckless in my actions. The crossbow is a weapon that can only be eaten by small animals or humans, not even for killing. This time, I can really see the scenery of someone becoming a bear food while still alive. Do I have to follow the princess to do that? He was smiling and arrogantly frowned by the cruel words he added. Suddenly, I was little surprised that he had seen through the crossbow. How did you know? What? My crossbow is not for killing. That's all I can feel, so they could have been allowed to bring in the palace. I was looking at him anew. Shwa. Like a lie, the rain began to pour. Huh. I looked up at the sky in amazement. Why am I so unlucky? The plan to get out of the forest before it rains heavily has been completely stolen. The heavy rain poured down without a doubt. Looking up into the dark sky, I felt like crying again. I hated being rained on. It was a moment when I was standing in the rain, neither here nor there. Pulsuk, something heavy was covered over the head. Where it then come over here? Suddenly, I felt warmth in my wrist. This is because the crown prince, who caught up with the rest of the steps, gently grabbed my wrist. Oh, the crown prince led me to where his horse was. The horse was cleverly avoiding the rain under a tree full of branches. He put the bare head, which was caught in front of the horse's saddle, and he too jumped on it and reached out to me. Get on. Water dripped from wet golden hair. He had already been soaked in rain because he took off his red cape. If you walk, you'll become prey for the beast. Speechless. It's a cape with waterproof and cold spells, so let's wear it and go back together. I gazed blankly at the man's big hand that was extended to me. Then I lowered my eyes with his red cape, which was roughly placed on top of me. It felt strange because there was no option in my head to ride a horse around like the crown prince. Can you give me this? What about you, your highness? Is the rat thinking of a cat? Or if you don't like it, walk with a crossbow. He turned his head and said rudely, do you have a bone in your mouth if you recommend it twice? I made a sarcastic remark in my heart, but hurriedly turned the crossbow back and fastened the cape that the crown prince had put on me. I thought there was quite a height difference, but his cape was as big as any blanket. Therefore, if you were to ride a horse and run fast, it might get caught flapping. Thank you. Finally, with his cape tied well under my neck, I raised my head, muttering a small thank you note. The crown prince's hand, which was handed out to me, was still unearned. It was the moment when I slowly reached out and tried to hold his big hand together. Shriek! Somewhere in the forest, something flew at a tremendous speed. Pooh! And it was stuck in the crown prince's heart without error. He, surprised by the sudden attack, the horse rolled its front feet and cried faintly. The hand that stretched toward me disappeared. Your Highness, the crown prince who falls off a horse and falls to the floor. Looking at him, I slowly opened my eyes wide. Your Highness! At last, when he was crushed to the ground, I ran to him frantically. I couldn't even notice what was going on. The face of the prince with his eyes closed was as pale as death. He'd die. My heart sank. Bakit kasi he's die? My heart sank. Even when I encountered a bear, I felt a fear that I had never felt before my eyes. Your Highness, open your eyes. I shook the crown prince's body like crazy, but the crown prince had no movement. A large arrow stuck in his left chest. I'm scared. I'm scared. This is a game. It's just a game. Why the hell? I burst into tears. The first cruel scene I ever saw made the accident stop. The first cruel scene I ever saw made the accident stop. Your Highness, please, please, please. You're noisy. Fortunately, the eyelids flinched and red pupils were revealed. Don't make a fuss. I'm not dead yet. Your Highness. I was truly relieved. It occurred to me late that male leads could not die, but the image of Callisto being hit by an arrow was so vividly painted that at that moment I thought he was really going to die. I didn't want to see anyone die in front of me, no matter how many times I hit X. The Crown Prince smiled faintly at me. But I don't think what you've given me is ineffective at all. He then pulled out an arrow stuck in his left chest and handed it over. This is a small round token-shaped ornament. It was none other than the golden amulet that he robbed me of. End of chapter 75.